Be strong.
Yeah.
Fire it up, Buttercup.
Oh, we're on.
We're on. Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Zoe. What do you know?
Not a lot, to be fair.
I'm surprised I haven't said that in all these weeks and thought myself hilarious.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
No, I know.
And how has your week been?
It's been quick.
I know.
It's been a quick week.
Do you think the weeks go by quickly?
Yeah, but this week I think it's really gone quickly. I don't know why. I don't know. Yeah, I literally trying to think about why has it gone so quickly.
I don't think the world's turned any quicker. I don't think that's it.
Are you sure?
Well, I'm not really. Maybe it
So
hasn't.
is that not part of global warming? Is that
controversial? But it seems to be like we're heading to Friday and Saturday before you know it, and then it's like, what are we gonna do this week? And I don't know. You just kind of define it by what's on the TV or when I'm running and what I'm eating. Generally, the three things.
We don't even do it by the TV. We don't even do it by the TV because we're watching box sets all the time.
Oh.
So literally, we sit down, watch box sets. Doesn't matter what the day of the week it is. That may be why. So it's not like you used to have Monday was EastEnders and such, didn't you? You knew which day of the week it was by your soaps. We don't watch the soaps anymore.
And then they started doing them daily, didn't they? Then at some point.
Oh, that Neighbours, they do daily. Yes. I used to.
But I mean, there's no Masked Singer this weekend, so I think
what are we going to do?
Well, I think Saturday Night Takeaway is back, isn't it?
Woo! I like Ant and Dec.
I'm a bit over Ant and Dec.
Maybe that's a bit excited. Maybe that's a bit excitable, but
these are the
times. Be interesting to see what they do.
We are living in these times of anything is exciting, right?
Anything is exciting. If anybody likes a medical drama, so if you like Grey's Anatomy or anything like that, I may have mentioned this already, but I'm actually in love with this program. Is New Amsterdam on Sky.
Oh.
It's just so good, like literally so good. I'm loving this program, and we've got to the end of the first series, and Andrew said to me that now, because at the end it says 3 months in 3 months time, the first episode of series 2 is set 3 months after the end. He went, you've got to wait 3 months now. I'm like, no, look, it's there. And he's like, no, we've binged. You can wait a month before we watch it.
Oh, I wouldn't be having that. I'd be like, I'm on it. I'm on it.
That, sure. And then Pose, which my friend Kate recommended, which we are now both engrossed with.
I am loving Pose. That's your fault because you told me about it, and now I've literally binged it all week. Last Sunday, I was sat in my garden chair, as I've shared with you before, in the kitchen with my my blanket over me. Yeah, haven't been for a run, and I was lapping that up. It's fabulous.
So good, isn't it?
Camp as camp. Good. It's amazing. But some good
camp is a camping.
Some good storyline stuff in there as well. Really. I need to write down these things that people recommend because I'm like, I get to the end of it and I'm like, oh, that's over. I don't know what to watch now. And then I trawl.
Yeah. Shall I tell you what I do? This is very geeky. Apologise.
Oh my God, have you got a spreadsheet?
So if you go on to Apple, I'm sure they've got a similar thing in there.
Hang on a minute.
Is this the notes section?
Is this?
This could be it. This could be it.
This is our.
Yay! Right, I'll put the jingle in right there. Right, so back to my top tip is if you go to your phone. I'm
doing it with you now.
All right, so then you go to notes.
Other phones are available.
Other phones are available, but they're rubbish. So you go to, and then you type the word to watch at the top.
Mm.
And then you put, whenever somebody recommends something to you, you put it in there. And then you've got a list.
Good. Well, I do that for other things. Why have I not thought about doing that for things to watch?
I don't know. And if you with these very clever phones, very clever phones. You can click next to them, and at the bottom it comes up with, so you can either put it in a table, letters, or you can, there's a little tick in a circle. If you push the tick in the circle, and then very satisfying once you've watched it. Oh, look, you can, I don't know why I'm showing the screen.
Well, people can see it on YouTube, but
they can't because it's rubbish.
Yeah.
But look, it gives you a little box.
I do that. I put shopping list things on my there and go around the, well, when I did go
for
around
books. So book recommendations and to watch recommendations. It's quite satisfying to tick it off once you've watched it.
I also put the social media hashtags on there that I use for AtoZee&back and stuff. Do you do the same?
I do, but not for AtoZee. I've got it for business of Instagram.
Which
hashtag
Instagram. If you're not, I think between Zoe and I, we've got enough Instagram and Facebook accounts to keep those companies ticking along quite nicely, probably.
Yeah, we can keep them in business. So with that in mind, so that's a very good segue. Well done. You didn't even know you were doing it.
I don't know what you're going to say, so I can't agree nor disagree yet.
Look at me taking control. Right, are you ready?
Yeah.
So today's topic, we thought we'd talk about bullying. I will look down quite a lot because it's a tricky subject. We will talk about bullying. And the reason that we thought about talking about bullying is that this week there's been a couple of things on social media that have come up. So that's why the segue into Instagram is very good.
Oh, I see where we've gone now. Yeah, we got.
See where we're following me?
We got there eventually.
Got there together in the end. So on Instagram, I may have mentioned it one or two times in the past that I really like Stacey Solomon's.
We love Stacey
Instagram. Yeah, the stories every day just makes you smile, makes you giggle. You do feel, and I know it's pathetic because she's somebody on the. She's a real person, but she's not a real person to me. Like, I haven't met her, but you feel that you know her and you feel that she values you as a follower and all that. So there's a genuine interaction. But she had, so yesterday she posted on Instagram. So on Thursday she posted on Instagram. Somebody had sent her quite a long message, but vile, but not like trolling, but just a horrible, like horrible, mean message. So it was all
personal.
about.
It's very personal, wasn't it?
Yeah, about how nobody cares about the craft that you do, and you're wasting time. And I don't see why Joe's with you because you're so ugly, but then he's nothing to look at.
It was literally
like,
that, wasn't
really
it?
Horrid. Yeah, really horrid. And then you and I were talking about that and saying, just people just are mean. Like, I don't like it. And then this morning, so the reason I said to you this, because we started talking about this earlier, and I went, I'm not talking to you about this until we go on to the thing, because I don't want to talk about bullying twice. So do you remember Britain's Got Talents? I think it was this year. Yeah, it was this year because they had the sign along with us.
Oh,
so
yes.
So it's a group. So they started with little boy and his big sister, and then they started singing, and then all these other special needs kids and their carers and family all came onto the stage, right? So amazing.
We all cried, right?
Yeah, everybody cried. Rightly so, because it was beautiful. And then they got through to the finals, and then of course COVID came and they had to do it from different venues, but they still made it work. So they got through really far. Anyway, so I follow them on there. She tweeted 20 hours ago, so last night. I consider myself quite emotionally strong. I've included some upsetting clips above to show how words can hurt anyone. I've also included a clip of me signing. So what's happened is that they've been receiving hate trolling for the little boy Christian, saying they should have killed him at birth and some really vile stuff. And I think it's sort of it's just so sad that people feel that they can be horrible to people on any scale. I think with it being virtual, people are very brave and don't think about the consequences. And I think that's two separate topics, really, isn't it? So it's the trolling, and you said you worry about that, don't you? Having teen daughters. And
yeah, I do. I'm just going to say this, and whilst it might see you say she doesn't, I sent Stacey a message, and I know she won't respond, and I don't expect her to do so. Just saying, just don't even think about it. And for that one person, there are many hundreds of thousands of people that you entertain, keep going, make laugh, me included. Every day I look, I watch, I laugh, I learn. And it brightens my day, and it has done for the past 12 months. So I think also, just because she's a public figure, those bits of reassurance are really important for people. And I don't expect, I haven't done it because I wanted to acknowledge.
But she does always acknowledge the fact that she gets, you know, how much she appreciates the feedback from people, doesn't she?
I think, sadly, social media, we've talked about this, haven't we? That there's lots of positives with it. But I have, to the point that I've stopped using Twitter. I have Twitter because we use it for work, but I don't use Twitter anymore because it makes me really angry and upset more than any other platform. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen on other platforms, but there's so much horrible stuff said, and people who've got opinions and are spiteful and nasty just for the sake of doing it. And I'm sure in some way, some people get a bit of a kick out of, for whatever reason. I'm sure if we psychologically analyze a lot of those people, there will be reasons in their life that they're really unhappy, and it's a way of them retaliating. And I think that's not uncommon, is it, for people who bully to actually, people who are bullied to then recreate that into bullying. Absolutely. I think that's very, very common. And we did want to talk about it because I think we both have experience of it, and this is not a comfortable subject for either of us. I know that, and we're both gritting our teeth, and it doesn't go away. I don't think so, does it? So I don't think you and I really have ever talked about it. I know it's been quite difficult for you in the past, and I don't know to what level you want to divulge or talk about it.
I don't care. Because I think it is. I can't say to people it's good to talk about it and then go, but I don't want to.
No.
I think for me, I did think at one point in my life, you know how some people say, "Oh, only a face a mother could love." I did think I've got a face that only a bully can love, because it seems like they were attracted to me like a radar. It's like it didn't seem to matter where I went or what I did. They seemed to find me.
Yeah, you have a beautiful face, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Thank you. I'll pay you later.
It was said with love. No money is needed.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. So I had, it's quite, I was thinking about how are we going to talk about it and how am I going to approach the subject. So we moved around quite a lot when I was growing up, through my dad retraining and going through different roles. So he did apprenticeship type things, which meant that I had to move schools quite a lot, which in some ways has benefited me, because it's meant that I'm quite good at talking to people and going through that uncomfortable. So even though I'll feel uncomfortable approaching people I don't know, I can do it because it's ingrained in me. You've got to do it. Even if you're uncomfortable, you've got to do it, because they aren't going to do it to you. And if I want to make any friends, I need to go through that. So that's, but it is quite interesting that the other side of that is it's fed my need to be liked, because of moving schools all the time and stuff. You do have that. And I think service kids, people whose parents are in the forces and things like that, will sort of quite often say similar things, as the need to be liked by people. So I went to 2 different secondary schools, and I don't remember having any problems when I was in primary school at all. For me, I think I was quite lucky in primary school. I had quite nice schools when I went to different schools, so that wasn't a problem. But I went to a Catholic school, which I know my dad's not Catholic, but I went to a Catholic school, and had to catch the bus to school. So that was an interesting. So I can talk about that one maybe. So that's more of a physical bullying and verbal bullying. And then I moved schools, and then it was on a bus again. Strange, I don't like public transport. And then it was a verbal bullying again that went all the way through school, really, on and off. And then when I started working properly, I then encountered it in my workplace. So my boss, so I was the office junior, and the head of the office wasn't nice to me. And so I ended up having to leave there, and at 21, pretty much having a breakdown and so I had to leave. I had to hand my notice in, had to hand notice in on my flat and all sorts. And then I got the job at the bank. So it all sort of fitted in. So I am a great believer in things happen for a reason, and the experiences that I had, have definitely helped me, but there are times when they still hinder me.
I think there's a little caveat for me around bullying is never okay, and you should never have to go through that to come out learning things from it. I think knowing you as I do, it has shaped you for sure. And there are some positives that will have come out of that. But I also know that it still holds, really not very nice. Yeah, for sure. But I think that just means that it's made you become a more compassionate, caring, understanding person, because you've been on the other side of that, and you know what it feels like not to be like it. And at any point, if
I will.
Because you know how inquisitive I am, and I'm inquisitive from a point of understanding. And when did you kind of first realize that what was happening, and you were conscious of it, and how you felt at that time? Can you kind of...
So on the bus, there were these older girls. So we had, Mum used to walk me to the bus stop, and then obviously got on the bus, and the bus went from Tewkesbury, and the school that we went to was in Cheltenham. So it went through our little village, picked me up, and then back into Cheltenham. I think the time, and people would sort of like, the big girls would say, call your names and stuff like that, but I didn't really, that was just, I was able to brush that off. I think because of having moved schools quite a lot, I was quite used to people's sort of like names and stuff like that. I didn't actually, that was whatever. It was, the first time was when the girls wouldn't let me off the bus. So I ended up having to stay on the bus all the way to Tewkesbury, and then having to go to my friend's house and phoning and asking my mum and dad to come pick me up, because I hadn't physically, they were holding me on the bus, so I couldn't get off. So that was the first time. And then I think just from then on, I sat towards the front of the bus so that didn't happen again. So I wasn't in the proximity of them. In the mornings, there was an older lady, unless you had primary school, the Catholic primary school kids were on the bus in the mornings. And so they had an old lady who would come on to look after those children. And kids are not very nice. So everybody called her the witch, because we aren't very nice. And she was an old lady. She was, she had long dark hair, quite greasy, quite overweight, always wearing black and purple, probably a very nice lady. She didn't have any front teeth. She was just an older lady that was, but she was feisty, so she didn't take any nonsense. So she used to say to the kids at the back of the bus, "Oh, be quiet, be quiet." So all the older kids didn't like her. And so you'd have run-ins with them, and I can remember them saying things to me on the bus after that time of not getting off the bus. But I'd sort of come up with a
so
solution.
Kind of fueled it, that it happened once, so they then used that as the thing to poke fun at you about.
So that's fine.
So it isn't.
Well, it isn't fine, but I sort of got used. I put mechanisms in place, so I moved close to the front of the bus, so that then I was not physically going to be put in that position where I couldn't get through. And my friend would sit next to me. So sort of had a little three of us. And once it was the three of us chatting on the bus, it was fine. I didn't sort of think about it. And I was able, because the other two were there, I was able to sort of fledge off the comments when they were coming and sort of pretend I didn't hear them. But then I got trying to fit in, as you do. I knew that we were moving house, so that I was going to be changing schools. And so I got all big cocky nuts, as you do, because still trying to fit in, even though I knew I was leaving, I was still trying to fit in. And so this lady on the front of the bus, I can remember saying, "I'm going to tell her what I think of her on my last day," giving it large. So the girls that were being mean to me left me alone for about a month and a half before I left, because they were going, "Oh, what you can say, what you can do, what you can say, what you can do." So like I suddenly became like quite popular, because I was going to give this woman a piece of my mind. And obviously, anybody who knows me, that isn't something I would really do. So it came to the last day, and all the way to school, they were going, go on then. I was like, no, I'm going to do it as I get off the bus. I'm going to do it as I get off the bus. And then they made sure they were stood behind me as I got off the bus. And obviously I didn't say anything. And my memory then goes a bit vague. But I know that outside of school there was a picket fence, and I remember holding onto the picket fence with them punching me and pulling me, saying, "Come on, we're going to the shop. We're going to the shop," which was obviously away from school, because you didn't do it. You're going to take us to the shops and you're going to get stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm not. And they were punching me. I don't know how I managed to get away from it at that point. Then I ran into the school and they chased me into, and because I'm really clever, tried to get into one of the doors, but it was in one of those, what's it called when it's all closed off? Anyway, I managed to corner myself, is pretty much what I'm saying. And then, you know, when you see the school films in like America and they're like, fight, fight, fight. It was that, except I wasn't particularly fighting back. So, and then school bell went, and then everybody went in, and then I had French, I think was my first lesson, and I sat at the back of the classroom, strangely crying, and one of the boys, who I thought was lovely, one of the boys went and reported it to a teacher, and then I got taken out of class, had to report it, and Mum and Dad came and picked me up at lunchtime, and that was my last day at that school.
Wow.
There you
go. That's really difficult to listen to, because, you know, there's all the things you want to say and do and find those people and, you know, now tell them how fabulous you are and what you've become and how amazing you are. And but it's saddening.
Yeah. I only told my mum and dad that story about 3 years ago. So they knew that I wasn't happy at school, because I became and this is what I would say to people who are at school and struggling, or at college struggling, is find somebody.
Yeah.
Just find somebody. So for me, I kept going sick because I didn't want to go on the bus. So to start off with, I kept going down to the school reception and would be sick, and then they'd end up phoning my mum and dad. And then the amount that I was going, it got suspicious. So the deputy head actually took me into her office, but I still didn't say what was going on, but they knew that something was going on.
Because it was out of character.
Because it was out of character, and because it was so often. So it got to the point that they would take me, put me upstairs, give me a cup of tea and a biscuit, ask me if I got anything to talk about, and then I had to go back to class. And I can remember that. So they knew something was going on, but if you don't talk about it, they can't do anything. And as soon as I talked, obviously it was my last day, so that was really brave, wasn't it? But when I did tell them, those girls were then excluded straight off. There was no question of it. No question of it.
And I'm sure you weren't the only person that was happening to.
Sure.
No. So I kind of, when you're talking about that, it just, you know, I could tell you as many stories about. I was always quite a little child. I was smaller than everybody else, especially when I went to secondary school. And same as you, I had primary school I loved. But then my parents decided to send me to a different school to all of my friends, that's what
happened to me.
Of which I still don't understand quite why that happened. So all of my friends went one way and I went the other way, and I knew one person vaguely.
I didn't know anybody, but Mum says that I asked to go. Apparently I asked not to go to the big comp, but I don't remember that. Interesting, isn't it?
And I, the first day, was traumatized because I had to get a bus to go on my own, the 7 miles, the opposite direction to the school that was a mile down the road that I wanted to go to. And we went into the school hall and we were all diverted into which classes we were going to be in. And because I was so traumatized, I didn't actually hear my name. So I just stayed with the one person that I knew and just assumed that I'm just going to go into, because I was just completely
overwhelmed.
And I was in the wrong class. So they did the register, and of course my name wasn't. So I had to put my hand up and say, I'm really sorry, but I think I'm in the wrong lesson. And that stayed with me for 5 years.
No.
That whole, he can't get the class right, he's stupid, started from day one. So I then had to be collected and taken to the class that I was in and walk in when everybody else was already there. So there was 2 classes now that knew that I didn't know how to listen to my own name. And I was little and very meek and very mild, not unlike I am today. And because I hated sport, and because I was small and I couldn't play rugby, football, or any of those, that I was just always the last to be chosen. And very early on in my teenage years, I made friends with girls more than I did boys, and probably that's stuck with me a lot. I don't know, just where I felt comfortable.
Yeah.
So I was always known as the puff from day one, and the queer and the gay and that stuck with me. And I think that probably has been quite damaging, because I associated the word as being negative and not wanting to be that person for such a long time. And people were, to be kicked, spat, and all of those things over so many years, I just couldn't wait to leave. I literally couldn't wait for the 5th year to come where I didn't have to get on the bus and hate every single minute of it. And I tried to fit in by being stupid and funny, and I got away with it for a certain extent, but there would always be those 1 or 2 people that just made my life miserable. And if I could find them now and have
what would you say? All right, so that's a good question. So what would you say if you could meet one of them now? What would you say?
Do you know what? I don't know whether I'd say anything. I've got all of this stuff in my mind, and there are 3 people a bit like you, and I'm sure I can see them. I know exactly who they are.
Yeah.
And I have, through my various friendship groups, know that at least one of them has been to prison, got into all sorts of stuff that they shouldn't do. And now I look back, I think if I look at that person's home life and what was going on, there is always a reason, isn't there, that people are not born inherently spiteful, nasty people. I don't think, but that nurture and the environment was definitely toxic for them. And I think I'm really proud of what I've achieved, as should you be. And families, and what we've done in our lives, and the people that we've met, and the people that we've become. Part of me just goes, I'd like to just not even say anything, but then the other part of me just wish I could just say something, but I don't really know what it would.
I know, it's funny, isn't it? But so when I went to Ilfracombe, there was this one girl in particular, and it's funny with my second secondary school experience, it was again the bus, but it was the first couple of years, and then I don't know why it stopped. I thought, well, I changed friendship groups, and that sort of changed. I sort of made friends with someone on the bus who was popular with the person who was being the bully. So although she didn't stop it from happening, she stopped it from happening because it was reflective on her. So that person didn't do it. And obviously you had the standard surname jokes and my nose. I can remember coming home saying to Dad, please, can I have plastic surgery? And he's like, you'll grow into it.
We both
when will I grow into it?
Yeah. You and I are separated at birth when it comes to noses, aren't we?
I know. But and so this one girl, I won't say her surname, but I'll say her first name. So Nina. So she was tiny. She was tiny. She's one of the smallest people, I think, in the bus. But she was spiteful. She was popular. She was pretty, blonde. So, the boy had the boys wrapped around her finger as well. And I can remember thinking when I left school,
pretty outside, definitely not inside, right?
No, not inside. No, correct. And I can remember thinking when I left school, if I saw her now, I'd say, do you know you made my life a misery? That's what I wanted to say to her. Do you know what you did? Anyway, so then I started working in the bank, and she came in as a customer. So I hid out the back.
It's funny, isn't it?
She was getting changed. She was working for a local cafe, and she came in to get changed, but I hid. I couldn't even serve her.
See, then my mind goes into all sorts of spiteful things I do, but that's not the right thing to do.
No, it's not the right attitude. Not the right attitude.
But it is. And how does it impact you now as a grown woman, when you reflect on it, or you think about it, or you see people? When does it stir up those kind of emotional feelings?
Please stems from, well, if you're making people like you, then they won't be mean to you. And I know that's where it comes from, and that's not a bad thing, because it's nice to have people liking you, but likewise, it's not falling apart when somebody doesn't necessarily like you, and that I'm lucky in the respect of that doesn't happen very often, that I come across somebody who blatantly shows me they don't like me. They might not like me and not show me, that's fine, but I think
whose problem is that?
that's there because I don't know about it, so it's fine. But I think that's possibly so. For example, at work, so I've had occasions when I've had somebody at work that I liked, but then I had to discipline or put through processes. And I, a few years ago, was put in the position where I had to put somebody on a performance plan who I really liked and wanted them to do well. And they were like, "You're just being too nice to me. You've got to just actually, I don't need you to be nice to me. I need you to just be honest with me and not worry about what I'm going to say to you in return." And that for me was a real eye-opener, thinking, hang on, this is like 20 odd plus years since, and I'm still hanging on to that need to please. I need to deal with that. So things happen and you go, that's making me feel. I've had instances where I think the biggest trigger for me is when I've been friends with somebody and they've put not put restrictions on me, but said, have high expectations of me, of what they want me to do. And so if anybody, I can remember one time being told by one set of friends, well, if you're friends with them, then you can't be friends with us. And anybody who puts anything like that, any connotations of, well, if you're going to be friends with them, then I'm not sure what friendship we can have. That to me is an instant, well, I'm going to be friends with that person because they're not putting restrictions on me. And I don't like that.
Absolutely.
I think the good thing that I learned from it, or I've grown from it, is that if I'm friends with somebody, then I'm friends with them. And actually that support is that everybody's individual and therefore they go through their own journeys. So people might do things that they're not proud of, but as long as they've learnt from it. So if that somebody was a school bully, if you can then recognise that and think, what I did was wrong and you can't rectify it now, but there was one lad who was a particularly unpleasant character at school, and I saw. Do you remember Friends Reunited?
Oh God, that was the very first first bit into social media, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I can remember this chap putting on Friends Reunited to anybody that I bullied when I was at school. I now have children of my own, and I've reflected, and I apologise profusely to anybody that I made feel unhappy or. That for me was mega.
Do you think
it's owning it?
Because I hear my children talk about, not really children now, are they? But
when they were smaller.
Stuff that goes on in the playground, and it just does happen. And I think even, those children that their parents think they're like angels and everybody thinks they're lovely, and then they just turn into this demonic thing, or they're nasty to people.
But it's all peer pressure, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's about survival, and it's about not wanting to be that person who is bullied. But when you are that person, to try and not be that, because you're seen as that pack hunting mentality of, well, if I'll fit in with this group if I'm giving this person who's struggling because their hair's wrong, their shoes aren't fashionable. But we don't think at that age, well, actually, their shoes might be unfashionable because their parents can't afford anything other than that. Or we just don't know, and we don't understand at that age why that person is different.
No, and it's interesting because there was a girl so when we first moved to one of the houses, this girl came down. She said she invited me to join the guides with her, and that she'd befriended me, and we had the Easter, and we moved to Wollacombe in the Easter holidays, and so we spent the whole of the Easter holidays getting to know her, and I thought, this is a really good friend. And then we got to school on the bus and everything was fine, and then got into a French lesson, and it was probably about a couple of weeks into going to school. And I can remember, and I didn't like French anyway because I'd never done it before. I did German French at my previous school, and then thrown into French. And she sat in the desk behind me, so it was sat in rows. She was sat behind me, and I can remember her putting my hair and calling me a bitch or something. Excuse the language, but I can remember being so shocked that she would do that, and then. Years and years later, and so for a few years we weren't particularly friends. That was because then she was just mean to me. In years later she said, well, I'm really sorry for the times that I was mean to you, but did you know that such and such behind me? And so it was. And when I think about it now, I remember her having somebody nudging her, going, go on, go on, go on. And then she being mean to me, but I hadn't pitched the two together. And it's interesting, isn't it, that is, it's hard to be brave and stand up, I think. But I think if you can, then
it is really
grow from it.
It is. And I think, you know, I look back, and even though I probably was at the bottom of the food chain, in my opinion, I still saw things going on which I could have stepped in, but I got involved, and I regret that. But you do, because it's a little bit of respite from it being focused on you.
Yeah.
And finding a group of friends and some people that stuck up for you a little bit.
How do you think you've overcome it, those experiences? Or used them?
I mean, I've definitely used them. I mean, I left school at 6. Well, I was 15, and I started working for Barclays when I was 15, and then I was 16 2 weeks later.
Wow.
And I mean, crikey, I was still a child. Got into this job. People were nice to me. I was never fearful. I felt encouraged. I felt part of a team. For the first time, I felt I was a grown-up, and they treated me as such. And I found that I was quite funny, and I could talk to people. And I very quickly realised that work was a really good thing for me, because it's the first probably really positive thing in my life. And therefore, I have used that to my advantage. I've always worked hard. I've always taken opportunities. I've always, you know, I think I've worked hard, and I've done a good job, and I've learned, and I've taken those things on. It's not because I don't have a degree. I didn't do A levels. I don't consider myself to be particularly smart, but I think I've worked hard, and that was a changing point for me, because I left all of that, shit behind me, of all those really miserable times. I mean, I used to go to school the first year of secondary school, and I'd cry every day about going to school, and my parents would just say, you need to shut up and get on with it.
My parents were really good. My parents were good, and I'd always feel sick. And they'd go, right, well, you're going back to school, so that's why you're nervous about going back to school. Is there anything? And they'd always ask, and I would never say. So that's, you know, I
think the downside of it is you and I are similar in that I'm an empath, which means that I feel everything. I feel every emotion, and I feel that from other people. And if I don't get the same back, then is there a problem, and what's going to happen? And I don't like I don't like conflict. I don't like things to be awkward with people, but sometimes I kind of create my own conflict for some bizarre. So those things do still sit in your head, don't they? And they do create a part of you that sometimes I don't really like. But I think I've learned just to try at times. I ask a lot of my friends, and you're an amazing friend to me, and I can
that goes both ways.
I can talk to you about stuff, but I have to be safe and feel safe about telling people stuff that is really close to me, because I guess that showing of weakness is something that's caused me a lot of pain in the past. I want to feel that I can share stuff for people to help me. So, but sometimes I don't, and I just shove it away and think, oh, I just get on with it. And that's, as we know, is never a good thing to do, is it?
No, I think so. I put on Instagram and everything about the fact that the topics that we were talking about, and somebody did message and say that sometimes it's when it raises its head, you don't realize at the time, you think it's impacting you at the time, and then when you leave that situation, like you just said about you got to work and it was a good environment and everything, and actually then you're in tune with yourself enough now to sort of recognize when things are triggering. And I know that, you know, when I'm put in a position, certain positions, certain feelings start to come, and I know that it's triggered from that. I know that it is. So they person said, bullying when younger has a strange way of coming to bite you on the bum. The only way that this person that learnt to deal with it properly is by having a bit of therapy. And knowing that different triggers take me right back to how I felt when I was bullied. So this person there was 20 years between the bullying and when something triggered those feelings.
And I know we're going to talk about this at some point, but I think it's the same, those learnt behaviors or when things happen in your life, grief, loss, you know, all sorts of triggers tend to, when you push them down, they will come back if you've not dealt with them.
And sometimes it can be something happy.
Yeah, yeah.
It can be something that comes up. You know, lots of people, when they have babies, they're really happy about having the baby, and then postnatal depression comes in and they think, but I should be happy. And it could be something from before that comes back.
Absolutely.
It is, but it's being brave, I think. And
so I think,
ask for help.
And if it's bubbling, or you go through unhappy times, I think, I don't mind saying I've had counselling and therapy various times throughout my life and really needed it. And sometimes it's been hugely beneficial, because actually that holding the mirror up to your face and, facing the things that are troubling you and being honest about them and open without any judgment is a very cleansing thing. I think it's when it's in your head and you can't get rid of it and you keep coming back to it, is when it just gets worse and stronger and it takes over. So if anybody's feeling that there is stuff, and it could be from a very long time ago, that is still impacting you, and it can't go away, you can talk. There's people to talk to.
Yeah, and there's lots of great charities out there as well, aren't there?
There are, and sometimes, you can't. I think the one thing I've learned is you cannot talk to sometimes the people that are the closest to you about the things that are most personal, because it sounds silly, or that's 30 years ago. And it probably doesn't.
It's just in your head. Yeah,
it is absolutely that. But that's sometimes when speaking to somebody anonymously, Samaritans or Mind, that you can do things through chat online, or getting a counsellor or speaking to somebody or whatever. There's loads of stuff. Is just talk about it and just try and give yourself a chance to feel lighter and be able to move into a different space in your life without getting caught up in that stuff, because otherwise it just suffocates you, and then you can't live life to your full potential. Or
and I think that's why you and I try and be and I think that's why you and I are quite positive people, considering things that have happened. Because do you know what, actually we've had situations that have been uncomfortable, that have been unpleasant, but actually we've decided that we need to take the positive light. Look, I would hate to think that I would ever make anybody feel uncomfortable, so therefore I make an effort to try not to be that person. I think it's funny, I went downstairs Katie from Positive Boxes, I had very kindly
we love Katie.
Positive box. We do. So she has lovely positive presents that you can send out through the letterbox, and I received one, and I put it on my fridge. So I put them on my fridge.
Oh, so little affirmation cards.
Little affirmations, yeah. And when I went downstairs earlier and I said to Andrew, we're going to talk about bullying. He might not listen to this one. And the message that I got on there from 4 months ago, grow through what you go through. And I think that's for me, I think I've grown into the person that I am because of the experiences I've had. And that's not just the bullying side of things. That is the positive situations, the people I've met. And I think I try to put things in a positive light. So although it was horrendous having the bullying in several different places, then having positive people in my life that have made an impact, so actually I ended up with some really good friends at school who were always there for me, like positive side of things, even though I was double guessing them all the time. They didn't know that. So they were good friends to me. And then I went to college, and then I met Andrew, and I've had that constant. And I consider myself to be really lucky, but I know that at times things will happen and I'll be able to draw on that bullying experience, how I felt, how would somebody else feel, how could they be feeling that. And actually I think that's helped me understand other people better.
I think we haven't necessarily got time to explore this fully, but I think also there's that bit around toxic relationships in your lives, and how we kind of hang on to friendships or family members that are not necessarily the most positive things in our life, and for whatever reason, through feelings of loyalty and love, don't get me wrong, but you cannot live your life through other people's toxicity, whatever it might be, and sometimes you just got to deal with those things in your life and move on from them, or distance yourself more from those things. So whilst we've talked about bullying from third parties, we also know that happens with people that are very, very close to us. And I think my ask of people listening, because we do, like to ask something of you from time to time, is if you're seeing stuff that's happening online, because that's where I see it. I saw somebody the other day, guy that was on a running group, who was saying, I'm really struggling, can't get out in the morning, da, 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 da. And somebody in the group said to him, man up. That was the response. And somebody else had gone, well, that's not really helpful, is it? And the person who responded was, oh, it's a joke. Do you remember when we had a sense of humor? So then everybody kind of, look, this is not the forum for this guy is asking for help. And as a group of people, we should be sticking together. And then it kind of stopped. We will all see that stuff. And what you don't want to do is get into a bitch fest about it.
Yeah.
But you can step in
people.
And report. That's why I gave up on Twitter, because I was reporting people left, right, and centre. They must say, oh, bloody hell, Adrian's reporting somebody. But we don't have to accept it. And we shouldn't stand by. We don't know what people are going through. And where we see it's wrong, we should do something about it positively, because otherwise you don't know what the impact of that might be. You don't know that person who gets that one comment. You think about Caroline Flack has been in the news again this year. It's a year on from too much pressure can push people over the edge. And it might just be that one comment that you make or walk by that might mean the difference between somebody living or dying. And that seems extreme, but it's absolutely true.
Yeah, for sure. And I think
sorry, that was a bit of an epilogue.
No. So, well, it's fine. I think the thinking about this day is sometimes as well just remembering that sometimes it's your baggage you're bringing to the party. So somebody might say something.
Sorry, I bring a lot of baggage to your party.
Didn't I say?
It's all right, I know it anyway.
I brought a double decker to mine. So I think it's knowing that sometimes you not thinking that person doesn't like me is okay. That person's a bit sharp. What's going on for them? Are they okay? And asking that question, are you actually okay yourself? I think it's a good opportunity for us to sort of say, our signpost, there are those charities out there that will support you. But there's also lots of apps and things. So if you find that, you can report things but to give you techniques, I talk about journaling and things like that. I think for me, that's why I was interested in doing the life coaching and things like that, because I wanted the skills to be able to help other people. But there's also, have you seen on Facebook? I know you're not really a Facebook person, but
I'm a little bit.
There's a group that's been set up, which I shall give out a shout to, where it's all about sharing. They share pictures, and I can't think what it's called now, so that's useful, isn't it? But it's sharing pictures and sharing positive affirmations, but also people put on there. So if somebody's having a bad day and they don't feel very positive, then they put on there and they have people. So it's like a support network. It's Walk the Mind. It's called Walk the Mind. Walk the Mind. Walk the Mind.
Sorry, my ears just suddenly gave up for some reason.
So they've got, I don't know why it's not showing. Let me share anything to you today. But they said people have put pictures of it. So it's set up by a gentleman called Oliver Bowers, set it up. But people put on their pictures of flowers. There's a lady that hand feeds a robin. So each day she'll put a picture of the robin on. So people who are in isolation, people who've got things going on that maybe not in a positive place, they all put comments on. But then you've got other people saying, hi, I just want to introduce myself. I've been struggling. And so that person, I've got a person here, if I think this person posted 54 minutes ago, said that they're a mum of a 21-year-old who's got autism, been off work for a bit, and they felt they're having November time, had a bit of a nervous breakdown. Okay, so they've posted about that 54 minutes ago, just saying they're feeling a bit anxious today. They've had 42 comments of support.
Wow.
Just people saying, sending you a hug. Okay, are you okay? Why don't you try this? Have you thought about that? And I think that's
nice, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's quite powerful. So if you have had bullying experiences in the past and you want to push forward, then you can just don't think, oh, it happened years ago, it's not having any effect on me. It's still worth talking about. And like Adrian just said, talk to somebody you don't know or talk to somebody you do know. I think it's important to just air it.
Agreed.
Air it, look at it. fold it back up and put it away.
give it a damn good kick in and then put it back in the box that it came from. I think also noticing when, you know, those are close to us that are struggling and we know they're struggling and sometimes they don't want to talk, is just signposting people to talk to, or blah, blah, blah.
I think so.
Well, there we are.
There we are.
Thank you for sharing your stuff, because I know it's not easy to do.
No, but that's all right. Hopefully, if it just makes somebody else realise that they're not the only person to have gone through that type of experience. And actually, I do think that it's made me the person I am. I wouldn't want to go back through it, but I do think it has shaped me, and I've chosen to grow from it rather than...
You've chosen the path. Do you ever think about, I wonder if that... I spent hours doing this. If that
No, I just look at the people that I fancied. I don't look at people that bullied me.
No, listen. I was going to say, do you ever think, if that hadn't have happened and I hadn't have done this and this hadn't happened and therefore I hadn't done that, I would never have met Andrew?
In my life, there are too many of those.
I
think. Because of moving around so much, I had different experiences with each sort of place that we lived in and things like that. So I've lived here and I've known Andrew longer than I've known anybody in my life apart from family. Because everybody else has been and gone and changed. And so even my friends that I have, so one of my closest friends, Katie, that I was friends with at school, we had a 13-year gap in the middle where she went to uni. So that, you have to take that off. So I don't know, really. I think the experiences would have meant that I would have done things differently, probably. I don't think that I would have...
You're not like
progressed in the career. No, I don't overthink it, because what's the point? What's the point?
I just find it interesting. I'm fascinated by fate and things happen and how, I am a little bit obsessed.
I definitely think that fate is definitely a player.
I'm definitely weirded out by some of those things sometimes, but I also love it.
But that's why I think, love it. I think that's why that's why I think, for me, because I think fate happens and all these things, that I had to go through those experiences to get to where I am now. Would I choose to do them again? No. But I do think that I've grown from them.
Well, they absolutely would have made you the person that you are. Yeah. But and some of those.
But likewise to you as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, we've waffled quite a long time on that subject, so let's now fold that one back up. And put
so what are you doing this weekend?
Let me think. I'll tell you what. It's a certain girl's 18th birthday this weekend, so I may be furnishing her with a gift.
Well, are you going to talk in conundrums like for the rest of the thing? Yes. Or are you going to tell us who it is?
Oh, it's Freya. It's Freya's 18th.
Congratulations! Happy birthday, Freya!
Happy birthday, Freya!
Oh, and I've got. When is that?
Sunday.
Is that the 22nd,
isn't it?
Oh, my friend Ian, 21st? Who will probably be listening.
21st.
My friend Ian's birthday is on that day as well, and he'll probably be listening to this at some point. So happy birthday to him as well.
There you go.
We can do other requests if you want to send them in.
If it is also
your birthday this weekend and we've forgotten or we didn't know, we're really sorry.
Happy birthday! But likewise, we're here to signpost and guide. So we're obviously not experts on the subject. Just putting out a caveat.
God,
but we do.
I feel like we're doing
our birthdays. Woo!
I feel like we're doing our own version of This Morning all of a sudden.
I quite like to do This Morning.
Please do not say that I'm Phil Schofield, because I will never speak to you ever again, ever.
Well, you can be Dermot instead, and I'll be absent.
Absolutely.
That'd be all right, wouldn't it?
Well, I hope you have a good weekend, folks, whatever you're up to, or have a good Thursday if you're listening on Wednesday. Or if it's 3 months' time, we hope you had a nice time 3 months ago.
Yeah, and just to say, if it has stirred anything up and you do want to talk to us, then give us a shout. But if not, contact someone, speak to them.
Speak to somebody. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
End of subject.
Thanks, so.
Nice to meet you. Bye.
Sending love. Bye.